You're listening to The Phillip Jordan Show.
Well, everybody, welcome into the Phillip Jordan Show. I am your host, Phillip Jordan, in-studio host and producer of Dozen Wolves Football on 96.9, the legend and Auburn writer for Last Word on college football. On today's show, I'll give my quick thoughts on the Super Bowl from Sunday. Won't give too long on that one just because it's Tuesday and everybody's seen the game. Obviously, would be the most watched Super Bowl of all time. Also, Alabama's got to look for another offensive coordinator. Give my thoughts on that. Then joined by two great guests, Brandon Silvers, former Troy quarterback from 2013 and 2017. And also he has played in the AAF, the Spring League, and most recently the XFL last year. We'll talk to Brandon about all that, get his thoughts on the Super Bowl and the Troy coaching staff. And then I'll be joined by Matt Murschel from the Orlando Sentinel to hit on several college football topics. You can check out the Phillip Jordan Show podcast over at wiregrassdailynews.com or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review, and I will read it on a future edition of this show. And if you leave just 4 stars, you are just a straight-up hater. You can email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com.
96.9 The Legend is your connection to classic country legends. But Digio Strategies has other options too. News Talk 103.9 is your source for America's top news and entertainment shows like Rick and Bubba in the morning, Glenn Beck from 9 till 11 a.m., and Clay Travis and Buck Sexton middays from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, and others fill your day with the latest news and views from America's top conservative voices. America at Night and Coast to Coast AM keep you company and connected throughout the night. Plus, Fox News, the Alabama Radio Network, and Wiregrass Daily News keep you informed with national, international, state, and local news. And with more musical choices like All the Hits, 106.7 KMX, Today's Country, 95.5 WTVY, and Music 107.7. Digio Strategies gives you more choices and more variety. Listen on air, online, and on our apps. 96.9 The Legend is just the beginning.
Like I said on the top, I wasn't going to spend too much time on Super Bowl because you all guys saw the game. You know what happened, so nothing here, me recapping it is going to be a shocker to you. But it's just really amazing, really, when you look at the Chiefs winning this championship. And look, I picked against them against the Buffalo Bills and against the Baltimore Ravens. I just kind of felt like this team going road first time, it would be tough, and I just didn't always like what I saw out of Kansas City Chiefs this past season. Felt like, I mean, obviously the receiver struggles at times with drops. I think the Chiefs had more drops than anybody in the league. I thought at times Travis Kelce just kind of looked like he slowed down a bit, but he was awesome throughout the playoffs. And then you just, at the end of it, you're in overtime. The 49ers go down there and they kick the field goal, go up 22-19. I looked over at somebody, I said, the Chiefs are going to win this because you just gave Patrick Mahomes a chance to win the game here in overtime. Like I said, you're only up by 3. He's going to go down there and figure out a way to get this team in the end zone. And the 49ers had opportunities early. I just look at the first possession. 49ers had a few good plays there. They were close to midfield. And Christian McCaffrey with that fumble. Now, I know the Kansas City Chiefs did not capitalize on that and score a touchdown. But still, that was a chance for 49ers to really take some big momentum to open the game, and they didn't do it. Had another 10-0 lead during the second quarter after the Christian McCaffrey 21-yard touchdown catch from Juwan Jennings. And the 49ers played really good defensively most of this game. They also caused some turnovers against this Chiefs team. Patrick Mahomes had an interception in the game. But at the same time, it's just end of the day. You just cannot give Patrick Mahomes that opportunity at the end. I disagreed with taking the ball first with 49ers, and I understand what they're talking about in the broadcast. Tony Romo was saying, look, they just went on a long drive, the Chiefs did. So the 49ers defense was out there a while on the drive that ended up with the tie for the Chiefs to send it to overtime. But I would have went on defense first, and here's why. Because you got to figure in this overtime situation that we're in that the Chiefs were going to score a touchdown regardless. Patrick Mahomes was going to get Kansas City into the end zone. I fully believe that, regardless whether they got the ball first or second in overtime. but then they go up by 7. Now, if you're the 49ers, you know exactly what you need to do. And then if you go down and score a touchdown, you go for 2 and you end it right there. And you really let the ball game go on that play if you go for 2 at the end. So I thought it should have went on defense. I mean, I get what Tony Romo was talking about, but still, I would have went on defense first in that one. And look, again, the Chiefs, a tremendous drive. Andy Reid just caught a beautiful drive there. And then the run plays, 4th down runs by Patrick Mahomes. Look, he doesn't run a lot, but when he needs to get the yards on the ground, he's fully capable of doing so. And like I said, this was probably a down year for the Chiefs, or we all thought that. I'm sure that will strengthen the team, and particularly at the wide receiver position going into next season. So it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I think the Bengals are the best team against the Chiefs. They really have been outside of Tom Brady. 1 year with the Patriots, and then another year there, of course, with the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. So we'll see. Chiefs won their 3rd. Now, obviously, the GOAT talk has happened with Patrick Mahomes, his 3rd championship. He's 28 years old, but he's got a long way to go. I still say that one of the reasons why Tom Brady is the GOAT is because longevity. Play to his 45. Now, also, Patrick Mahomes needs to get about 4 more Super Bowls for that to happen, but he's closest thing to it, and it's just amazing how Brady leaves New England. Yeah, he wins the championship with Tampa Bay, but still, New England's down. They're no longer the dynasty in the league, and they're quickly replaced by the Kansas City Chiefs. And Patrick Mahomes is that guy, that fear you had and Tom Brady in those situations, and now teams are going to have it with Patrick Mahomes. Now, some news we got on Saturday, here in the state of Alabama. Ryan Grubb, he is going to be the offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. Not even going to be the Alabama offensive coordinator, even though a few days earlier, so this news hit on Saturday that I think Wednesday or Thursday, he got in front of people and said, I am your new offensive coordinator. And now he is going to the Seahawks. And then there was also a story got out that Seattle waited to make this move when the 30-day transfer portal window was up for Alabama. Of course, that opened 30 days ago when Nick Saban retired. And I don't know, you can look at that as shady. I mean, pretty much doesn't give players opportunity to leave if they wanted to. But, yeah, he leaves and he goes to Seattle. And, of course, coming from Washington, so kind of he's in the same area, obviously. And he had been working with Caleb DeBoer the last 2 years there at Washington, record-setting offense, part of the development there of Michael Penix. And you kind of wonder, where does Alabama go for here? And this time of year, we're in February, so finding an offensive coordinator is tough. Look, a lot of people are going to look at it, though, with Washington, Caleb DeBoer, that's his offense. So who's he going to bring in to kind of help run the kind of system, kind of offense he wants to run, a drop-back passing offense? AL.com put out a list of guys out there. One name is Kirby Moore. He worked at Fresno State with DeBoer. So that's one they put out. Jamarcus Shepard is another one. That's another name that has been put out there as well. Alabama's wide receivers coach. He has worked under DeBoer for 2 years at Washington, so very familiar with what he wants to do. Nick Sheridan is another name. AL.com put out. Scott Huff. Now, he is the offensive line coach. Now, a lot of people think he would go with Grubb to Washington, to Seattle. We'll see. And then just Kalen DeBoer. Just name himself the offensive coordinator. Which I guess, you could do that for a year and just see how it works. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting. So more news with Alabama. That was speculated and thrown out there. I know Pro Football Talk was one with Mike Florio had mentioned that he would be a candidate for the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator job. So we'll see where Alabama goes at, and we'll talk about it. If Alabama hires a new coordinator, we will talk about it here on the show. All right, let's jump into the interviews. First up, I'll be joined by Brandon Silvers. Of course, as I said on the top, played for Detroit Trojans at quarterback from 2013 to 2017. One of the best Detroit quarterbacks of all time, in my opinion. And also last year he played in the XFL and spent time in some other leagues, so training camps in NFL. So we jump a bunch of different football conversation talking points with him. And then Matt Murschel from the Orlando Sentinel covers college football in Central Florida. We get into about a good 10 minutes about just kind of the state and what's been going on with college football since the season has ended. And also we'll talk Central Florida. Of course, Gus Malzahn's coaching down there, and also KJ Jefferson, the Arkansas transfer, coming over to Central Florida. So anyways, Brandon Silvers first, and then Matt Murschel after that, and then I will wrap up the show after those two interviews.
All right, welcome back in to the Phillip Jordan Show, and joining me on the show right now is Brandon Silvers. Played quarterback for the Troy Trojans from 2013 to 2017. In my opinion, one of the greatest Troy Trojan quarterbacks, and also has spent time in the National Football League, the AAF, the Spring League, and the XFL. And Brandon, I appreciate you coming on a few minutes and talk with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's my fault for waiting 2 years to have you on again. I was looking at our past messages, but I appreciate you coming on the show. And we're recording this on Monday, so everybody's reacting and everybody's talking about what happened in the Super Bowl. Just did it go about the way you thought it was going to
go? Not at all. I did have the Chiefs winning, but I didn't know it was going to be a field goal game. Probably just like everyone else. The kickers, it was a kicker show, and, I thought it was going to be a lot more touchdowns scored, and, I'm an offensive guy, so I was hoping to see a big-time offensive performance, but we didn't really see much to the second half. But, you just can't bet against Patrick Mahomes.
No, it's almost like, just me watching as a fan, it kind of reminds me of Brady. It's almost inevitable. When the 49ers kicked the field goal, I had a bunch of friends over watching the game in overtime. I said, they just messed up. They just gave Patrick Mahomes the ball, and he all has to do is get a touchdown. It's just, he's almost got like that Brady-esque quality to him right now.
Yeah, you're just kind of watching it, and you're just like, they're ahead. It's okay. Patrick Mahomes has, a minute 50-something. They're going to go down there at least get a field goal. So it's kind of just like that last drive. It's like, all right, go down there, kick the field goal. Let's see overtime. You just knew that they were going to go tie it up or win the game at the end of the fourth quarter. And then after they kicked the field goal and overtime, you just knew they were going to go down there and score. So it's just like Tom Brady back in his day, and it's just now it's Patrick Mahomes' time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just watching them play, and obviously you play in a position. Everybody looks at the wow throws that Patrick Mahomes does make, but what kind of stuff that you see that maybe the fan doesn't see, but somebody that's played position sees out of Patrick Mahomes?
His legs. I mean, you look in the second half, he had the 4th and 1 to get down there. I believe that was an overtime to go win it. I mean, that was 4th and 1. You just knew that he was going to make it, so it's like you're not even worried about it. Just using his legs after really they contained him for the first half for the most part, and then he got out of the pocket a little bit, made some great scrambling throws. Like, people forget he can run as well when he needs to. So, really, obviously he got a huge arm, but just breaking out of the pocket and getting those first downs with his feet, I think, pretty much won them the game.
Yeah, it was. And, like I said, he doesn't do it a lot, but when he does it, it's effective. On the other side, Brock Purdy, of course, a lot of conversation about him coming in as, look, he's got all the talent around him, which, you look at any team that's successful, there's talent all over the field. But anyways, he gets that game manager label put on him, which I don't really like, because it sounds like that's a negative. People say that. But what's kind of been your thoughts on Brock Purdy?
I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now. Yeah, does he have talent around him? But who doesn't? He might have more talent around him than this other cat, but it doesn't matter. He makes plays, and I don't see a negative deal about being a game manager. He manages the game better than anyone, if you want to call him that. So it's like he gets the ball in the right places. I don't understand all that guy's done to be the last pick in the draft, and he's made huge playoff runs. Last year he gets hurt in the NFC Championship game, so that's can't help that. And then he wheels them all the way to the Super Bowl in his second year being the last pick in the draft. So it's just a lot of hate going on, and people thinking that, that could be me. I could do that now. I ain't gonna say no names, but just a lot of hate going on towards that guy, acting like a game manager is such a terrible deal. And he's not, because you look early in the playoffs, he had 2 come from behind wins. That's not a game manager. Like, that is a playmaking quarterback. So it's just a lot of hate, and, you know, maybe he's not a wow factor. He has a huge arm like Mahomes or Josh Allen or any of those guys, but all that guy does is win. And that would be fine for me if you want to label me as a game manager, because if I'm in the Super Bowl and you're not, I could care less what people would have to say.
Yeah, you bring up that should not even be a negative way some people talk about, you know, some media people. Former Auburn quarterback, Cam Newton, he's been very vocal about it. But when you play a position, isn't kind of part of playing quarterback being a game manager? Yeah,
that's perfect. You know, you look at a lot of guys that are game managers, that's fine. Like, that's how you manage the game. Like, you're not going to cost your team, you know, with all those guys they have on offense. Like, you need that kind of game manager and how you manage the game in a certain way. There's certain times where, hey, take the sack here. Don't try to, you know, throw it into a tight window and just punt it. And that's, you know, that's also pretty good game managing when you have to make those decisions. And that's fine sometimes. Some people will throw it into those tight windows like sometimes I do. You know, it is what it is. But, you know, you kind of shouldn't worry about the whole game manager deal. Like, that guy wins. He throws the ball downfield. And Cam Newton, I mean, yes, he's the MVP and made it to the Super Bowl, but he's just sitting back. You know, he had his chances the last couple of years. He ain't even been a game manager or a playmaker. So you got guys like that that are just sitting back, just trying to hate on a young quarterback, and it's just, you know, it's not good for the game.
No, it's not. It's a great story. I kind of found something myself rooting for the 49ers last night. And I'm a Packers fan, so I still kind of have hurt feelings from a few weeks ago when they knocked out the Packers. But, talking about your alma mater, Detroit Trojans, of course, John Sumrall left. I think last time we talked, Chip Lindsey was still there. John Sumrall had not become the head coach yet at Troy. Just kind of looking at John Sumrall, what he did at Troy. How was he able to take, you know, he went 3 straight years, no bowl games, about 5 wins every year, and then all of a sudden now Troy's back-to-back Sun Belt champions. What did you see out of John Sumrall that made him to take Troy back where most Troy fans expect him to be?
Well, he brought back that grit when Neil was there, when Coach Sumrall was there at first time. He knew he was there and where we were in 2014 and to when I left in 2017. Like, he was there, part of that staff, and he integrated that again. And with Chip, it was too much laid back stuff and a bunch of other stuff, but I won't comment on. But it's just more laid back, and like, you can't. It's not how you win. That's not how Troy's ever won like that. You got to have that Troy edge that's going to say, hey, we don't care who we're playing. We're going to go in there and at least compete. And that's what Summerall brought back, was that Troy edge. And I mean, you look in, you know, 3 losing seasons, and then all of a sudden you went back-to-back double-digit games. Like, you went to Sun Belt championship. So, you know, well, you can't ask for much more of that.
Yeah, you know, I think it was the first game. It was the first game he coached. They're playing Ole Miss, and I think there was a bad call, a penalty that he didn't agree with, and just, you know, you look on the sideline, he got very passionate and animated over it. But also, I see it as just as a fan, a coach fighting for his team. As a player, if you see your coach doing that, how much does that mean to a player when your coach does that?
It means everything. You know, he's just not gonna let it go. And, you know, just all right, whatever. No, like, that man cares. Like, John Summerall cared about that, bringing championship swagger back to Troy. That's why I wanted him to get it after Neil left. And, you know, athletic department went a different way, you know, the wrong way in my opinion. But then we finally bring him back, and, you know, he goes off and does that because he actually cares. Like, it ain't just a regular job to him. Like, Troy meant something to him. So I was glad to see him come in there and be successful. And then you know, other opportunities come when you win like that. So it is what it is, and he was right to do so. So I sent him a text saying thank you for doing everything you did, and, you know, I'm happy for him.
And of course, then now to bring in Jared Parker, coming in. What was your thoughts and your takeaways from him, his press conferences, everything he's done with Troy so far since taking over as head coach?
Well, the main thing he brought back, brought back my quarterback coach and Sean Reagan. So that's all I wanted. I wanted my coach to get a shot at being an offensive coordinator and calling plays. And that's all I can really say right now is that I'm just happy he brought Coach Reagan back. And, there's not many quarterbacks that, me, Corey, Caleb for his last year. You name it, that guy's been in that quarterback room for a lot of people who put up some good numbers there. So now I was just excited for Coach Reagan to get his opportunity with Troy.
Yeah, I was looking at of course, you, Levi Brown, Corey Robinson, Caleb Barker, just some of the quarterbacks. And he recruited, I was reading the story, recruited Gunnar Watson when he came to Troy, and then also Goose Crowder, who's there now, but when he was at West Virginia, brought him in. But when you were around him, what are some big things that he helped you in your development?
It's just simplifying everything. These days, people want to be so complicated and doing all this and all that when it really is you try to make the game as simple as possible. Look, you got an air raid. If you look backside, you got a soft corner, you're probably going to have a hitch. You ain't got to worry about nothing to do with the O-line, nothing going on to the field. If you have a quick game and you got a backside corner soft, you throw that hitch and you take it right now. You don't think about nothing else. That's all you think about. And obviously more plays, you got to go through, but that's just one part of simplifying everything. And in the pros, some people try to make it way too complicated. And that's when you see the people not playing confident. And I felt like he did a great job with me and me knowing the whole system, playing 4 years, just making it simple and just going out there and attacking. Because I felt confident about everything I was doing.
Yeah, and I was reading his bio over on the Troy Athletics website, and coaching running backs too, Jordan Chun, Brandon Burks, two very successful running backs at Troy. Obviously, you know that. But I think that's probably a really good thing too when you look at that, because you're looking at he just didn't coach quarterbacks, coach running backs. So the overall offense, as he knows pretty much the ins and outs of what to do. Just what kind of offense do you expect him to run at Troy?
It's going to be just like exactly almost going to be a balanced offense with air raid schemes. Try to run the ball and pass the ball 50% of the time each. So it's just going to be that's how we were in my last couple of years because we always had Chun, so he needed to get the ball. It's going to be a lot of air raid concepts. I think the last 2 years they've had a lot of 12, 13 personnel. I don't think you're going to see much of that with 2 and 3 tight ends. So we never did much of that. But, you never know. I haven't been with him in a couple of years, obviously, when he's been at West Virginia. So, your offense has evolved, but, I just know him being an air raid guy, but knowing run the ball as well. So I expect to take shots and, just put a lot of points on the board. Be better, at least. Ready for he's going to be here.
And, I talked about Gunnar Watson too. Of course, ended up his Troy career after the bowl game, which that was I know it was a bad situation. He had been sick that week, and just I'm just going to say this, and I don't know if I've told you, Brandon, I am now a Troy student too, going online to finish up my school there. So it may sound a little biased in this. I think Troy would have won had Gunnar been healthy, but I'm just going to leave it at that. But what did you see out of him in his final year there at Troy? Because it seemed like every year he was there, there was another quarterback. He kind of split times with somebody. But this past year, you knew from start to finish he was the guy. What kind of big improvements had you seen with Gunnar Watson throughout his career, particularly that last year at Troy?
Yeah, I just Gunnar came on a visit the weekend before we went down to the New Orleans Bowl, so I met him down there. So that's how long he's been there. So let me just put that out there. Everyone gave me a hard time for being there for a long time, but not like some of these players that just got done. But I always kept up with Gunnar. I always felt bad in a way of he sits behind Caleb, and then Chip comes in, brings his own guy. and he gets thrown in there sometimes. They get taken out, and then Summerall's first year, he's playing. I don't know if he's playing that well. And then Daggy comes in, and it's just kind of like with all that stuff that's been on, like he finally, like I felt, played confident this past year because he knew he was the guy, and he wasn't thinking about nothing else because he's just confident in being himself and being the guy and not having to worry about all these other things. Like he just took advantage of his, opportunity this year. So I was happy for him the way he finished. I mean, winning 2 Sun Belt titles, pretty damn good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still remember the first one, just the epic game he had there against Coastal Carolina. Went all off on them on that one, that first Sun Belt title. Spring football. Guess I'll just lead it with this. Just as someone that's played in the XFL and you played in the AAF, you played in the spring league. The merger, the 2 leagues merging, was that a surprise for you when that came about?
Not really. I knew they had to merge because XFL lost quite a bit of money, and the USFL, in my opinion, the viewership of it, no one was really keeping up with it. And for the most part, I felt like our XFL brand was a lot better than theirs. So we knew we kind of had to kind of merge. So it's good. I didn't know they were going to merge down to 8 teams. I thought they'd do it 12. But, I've been grateful to be able to have those leagues and keep on playing. My family still has enjoyed me over the years, going and keeping on playing because I enjoy it. So I'm very grateful for those leagues to come about. We'll see about the UFL coming up. Still trying to figure out what's best for me. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with this UFL, if it makes it or not. I've been privileged to play in all of them. So I just enjoy the game, and I still got a little bit left in me. So, we'll see.
Like last year, how often do you guys get to see The Rock? Does he come around a lot, or what's kind of like the deal with that?
Well, for the draft, we had the draft in Vegas, and I got to meet him out there, so that was pretty cool. I've been able to hang out with some pretty cool people over the years, but that was probably the first one I was just like, holy shit, this is The Rock. But so I got to meet him along with a bunch of other quarterbacks got to. So not his ex-wife Danny was around a lot more because The Rock's a busy man, like he's doing everything. So and I saw him maybe twice. So, but I got to meet him, once and talk with him. So that was cool.
And look, I get online. I'm in some Facebook groups that talk about last year, particularly the XFL and USFL, and you always got people. I'm like one of these people. Like I'm just happy to have more football. I like watching both leagues. I'm just not one of these that's gonna hate one and love that. I like them all. But with the players like yourself playing the XFL, was there a little bit of a rivalry between the 2 leagues, or was it just, hey, we're just happy everybody's getting this opportunity?
Yeah, that's exactly like I got buddies in the USFL and I have a lot of buddies in the XFL. So, I would watch my buddies' games, but I enjoy watching a game and there's fans in the stands. Like I played in that spring league and there was no fans. Like it was just, it wasn't fun. So for me in my career, I was like, I'm going back to the XFL because I know there's going to be fans there. And I do not want to play in a stadium with no fans like I did in the spring league during COVID, but I wasn't doing anything. So I knew I needed to go do something and keep playing. So, I just did that to make relationships and, that was kind of it was a fun deal because it wasn't that serious. So, but, I'm grateful for both of the leagues because people don't realize how hard it is to even get to an NFL team, and then it's even harder to stay on. So it's just tough. You just got to fall into the right situation, and when I was with the Jets, I wasn't. So.
And I got like 2 more questions for you. On the field interviews. Now, obviously, we're sitting at home. We see it. We see, okay, they go to the camera. There's whoever's the sideline reporter, and then there you are getting interviewed. Do they just come up to you and there's a camera and they just start interviewing? Do they say, "Hey, I'm about to ask you a few questions"? Like, how does that work?
Well, there's always someone that works with the interviewers. And so they'll kind of come up to you if it's at the touchdown. They'll come up to you and be like, "Hey, can you do an interview real quick?" And you'd be like, "Yes." You're not going to say no and kind of be an ass. But, yeah, they just come up and ask you all types of questions. I mean, I got interviewed right before the kickoff. They wanted to interview me almost right at kickoff. I had to run all the way down to the opposite side of the field to go on the field for a game. I'm like, I'm trying to get ready for the game. And then they invite you to come over and interview. And then you're like, "Oh, I got to be out in the field." Most of the time it's after a score or something like that, so you got a little bit. But, I've done interviews right before we step out on the field before. So it's fun.
Yeah, I think there was one game I was watching. Arlington was in it, and I think it was early on in the year, and you could hear it in the broadcast because I know it was with McElroy and Cole Kubelik. And McElroy was in the booth just agging on Cole to go down there and ask Bob Stoops a question. I think it was after a bad play or something. It was just kind of funny that I think it was the first game or two of last year, and I think Cole Kubelik was almost afraid to go up to Bob Stoops and ask a question. So it's kind of, as a viewer, it's kind of cool, but I just kind of wonder how it is for you guys and the coaches, because I know obviously you're focused on the game, but then here comes an interview right there on the sideline.
Yeah, no, those two are they're funny, and I always mess with Cole and Greg, and especially we played San Antonio, and I just got hit all game long, and I was messing with them in the next week about something I forgot, but I've always been cool with them because Greg did it in 2020 I was as well. So then Cole's a Birmingham guy, so he's always down in Orange Beach, so I always do an interview if they ask. So.
Last question, last year with the Houston Roughnecks, head coach Wade Phillips, and then obviously offensive coordinator A.J. Smith. And you guys really, the way the offense worked, really had an exciting, fun offense, put up a lot of numbers, a lot of great stats. You guys went 7-3. I know the season didn't go like you guys wanted to when you got to the playoffs, but just those two guys, what was it like playing for them, and really what helped make the offense work?
Yeah, I played for A.J. Smith in that spring league, and I loved the offense. It was just he's got the same background as me, air raid and a little run and shoot. So, that's why I skipped out on the USFL to go back to the XFL because I know he was going to want me there with them. So, it's just – and those guys are just really player coaches, and especially Wade. Wade's probably the most player coach I've been around just because he gets it. He ain't trying to run you into the ground. He was a player. He's been a coach for a long time. So it was really great playing for those guys. And, we were really hot going start the season. I get hurt in week 6 to my throwing arm. Just wasn't ever the same after that. So, hopefully I get another shot. And if not, I'm pretty fine with my career, how it planned out. So.
Well, I know speaking down here in the Dothan area, obviously we're close to Troy. We're hoping to see you on the field this spring. Look forward to it. Get to see you play. And once again, Brandon, I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything out there you want to talk about or plug or anything like that before I let you go?
No, I think we covered most of it. I'm excited to see what Troy has. I'll definitely be coming up to more games and stuff like that because, I'm just excited for Coach Reagan getting that opportunity. He's very close to me, kept up with me over the years. So I'm just excited for him and his family moving back down to Troy. So just excited for them.
All right, sounds good. Brandon, once again, hope to see you on the field in almost 2 months. Everybody says, Super Bowl ended, but now, hey, we got football right around the corner with the UFL and everything else. But again, Brandon, I appreciate you coming on the show, and I hope we can do this again sometime down the road.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me again.
All right, everybody, my next guest on this week's edition of the Phillip Jordan Show, I am joined, longtime friend of the show, Matt Murschel. You can check him out over at the Orlando Sentinel, where he covers Central Florida and college football. And, Matt, I appreciate you coming on the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, Phillip. I appreciate you asking me.
Oh, yeah. It's always a great time to talk college football with you. And we were just joking off the air that a little over a month ago, Michigan won the national championship. And I think a lot of people have forgotten about that fact.
It does seem like that, doesn't it? Like we've had a month since then, and it seems like every time you turn around, there's some big breaking story going on in college football, whether it's a lawsuit or something going on with realignment or NIL or a coach leaving or going to, a coach retiring, and it never ends. And so you feel like you're just trying to basically catch up with everything as we keep moving forward. But yeah, Michigan did win the national championship. And Jim Harbaugh now is over is over on the West Coast trying to get the Chargers ready to be hopefully an NFL contender.
Yeah, that was probably the least shocking coaching news we've had since the season ended when Michigan won the title was Jim Harbaugh was going to go to the NFL. It was like I was also like, yes, and water is also wet. There's no shock that he was going to leave, but. I'll ask you this, of course, I'm here in Alabama. I mean, this is a story that's over a month old, but people are still talking about it. The retirement of Nick Saban. Did that catch you by surprise?
Yeah, it did a little bit. I mean, I always felt like Nick Saban was one of those guys who was just going to keep going and going and going, and probably outlast, a whole generation of young coaches coming in. But I think when you look around, when you look at how the college landscape has changed a little bit, and you look at his age a little, and I don't know if the age is really even a factor, but, you look at everything that kind of goes along with college athletics, and you can kind of see maybe where, older coaches maybe get a little bit tired of dealing with that. It's a big challenge when you think about it. I mean, you've got NIL and name, image, and likeness and how that's being operated. You look at the transfer portal. You talk about recruiting. College football coaches back in the day, back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they worked maybe 9 months out of the year. But these coaches now, I mean, they're working every, 365 days. They're out constantly recruiting, constantly doing things. And I think eventually that kind of all caught up with him. And I think he felt like this was the time where he can step away, he's still active, and he can still do stuff with his family and enjoy retirement rather than kind of be one of those coaches that, it has to be kind of forced out, whether the things turn bad, record-wise, or whether, you feel like your health isn't going to help you out. It gives you a chance to do some things with your family, and I think that's where Nick kind of falls in. So, yeah, it was a surprise, but I think eventually we knew at some point he was going to end up not being there and having to move on.
Yeah, I remember somebody sent me a screenshot of the story or the link. I thought, that's got to be fake. He didn't retire. I mean, just because this is the way in the state you've been hearing it for so long, age and everything else, and of course now he's going to be over on game day, and that's kind of like where I was going to go with it. I mean, you got to think NIL and transfer portal, just the extra. I hate to say it, work. I mean, Nick Saban, guys like that like the work. They're hardworking. They love the grind, and they're great at it. But the time off is not there, and it feels like. Maybe being a head coach at the college game, at least how everything is right now, unless things change, it's not going to really be for a guy of a Nick Saban's age. Maybe younger guys right now at the head coaching job, just because of everything that they have to do with their roster, recruiting, NIL, and all that stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's going to be a lot harder for older coaches to really kind of go through that. And I mean, I'm not saying that these guys can't do it. I mean, it's just, but I've spoken to a lot of coaches of a different variety of ages, and they talk about it. It's daunting now. I mean, you really are spending so much time, with your own players, trying to make sure they're happy and they're ready to go. And, then you're out recruiting, trying to get high school players to buy into what you're doing. And it used to be you could convince a player to come to your school based on what your school had done and what your program was doing. But now it's about NIL, and you got to figure out what kind of money situation that's going on. So that requires a coach now to all of a sudden you've got to be out in the public eye. You've got to be doing events and finding ways to raise money for your NIL, and also skirting the issue, skirting the legal issues with it. Making sure you're not violating any sort of rules by it, which can be difficult when you look at the situation where each state has its own individual NIL laws in place, and things are different, and you're competing with schools maybe like, let's take Nick Saban, for example. Alabama's competing with the Ohio States and the Michigans and the Tennessees, and all these programs are in different states, and they have different rules. And so, they can do things that maybe you can, or you can do things that they can't. So it's really challenging. And, trying to get all that together and figure that out. Plus, you're also trying to raise money for facilities and for your own athletic department. That's a whole nother issue. And it can be really just daunting task right now. And not even just sitting down and doing X's and O's, which a lot of coaches really prefer. It's just more about doing that. And then there's the idea of looking at your staff and adding more people to try to help you out. And that requires more work. And, it's like I said, it's really challenging. And I think a lot of coaches now are looking at this job thinking, okay, maybe going to the NFL is a better route. Maybe going somewhere where all I have to focus on is coaching players rather than worrying about this stuff is the way to go. And I think you've seen a little bit of that, this off season, but I don't think it's a cry for help that, we've seen some of these guys leave. I think it's just the way the business of college athletics is right now. And what remains to be seen is what's going to happen in the near future. Or, if things change and all of a sudden, college athletes become employees like we've kind of seen talk about, then that changes really kind of how everything is. And there are a lot of old school coaches who don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned like with Boston College, Jeff Hafley going to take the Packers defense coordinator job, but even a power, conference, team as a head coach to go be an assistant, a coordinator. And then Chip Kelly, I mean, we saw that he was interviewing for NFL offense coordinator jobs while he's still the head coach at UCLA. Now he's going to Ohio State to be offense coordinator. So, those are names you just kind of see that. It is kind of like you look at it and you're like, wow, I mean, that's kind of shocking to see a coach do that. But you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of these guys might be saying, hey, I just want to coach ball. I don't want to deal with all that other stuff.
Yeah, it's very much so. I think in the Jeff Hafley case, I think, he was under a lot of pressure. He was under a lot of scrutiny. And I think, he was on the hot seat for, most of the last couple of years. And I think that, maybe you look around and you think, okay, I'm just done dealing with all this, and I want to go to an NFL job where I can, especially a coordinator job. You're going to get paid well, maybe not college football head coach well, but you're going to get paid well. And like you said, you really don't have to do anything but focus on coaching your defense, coaching your players. The players come to you, they're signed, and you're drafted, and you develop them, and you do those kind of things. In the college realm, it's a lot of different things. So that didn't surprise me nearly as much. I mean, the Chip Kelly move again. Much like Jeff Hafley, I think his time at UCLA had kind of run its course, and a lot of UCLA fans weren't necessarily broken up when he left. So in a lot of ways, you look around and you think, hey, maybe it's better for me to go back to my roots and be an offensive coordinator, and especially in the Big Ten, where I'm going to get paid a lot of money, and I'm going to work with a program like Ohio State, which has done a lot, has the resources to do things, and I'm going to go in there and try to turn some things around there and get their offense going. And, who knows, in a year or two, we win a national title at Ohio State, and, maybe I'm back to being a head coach somewhere, depending on how that goes. I mean, we've seen a lot of coaches kind of do the similar thing in a way, going to Alabama, but none of those coaches were sitting head coaches, that decided to leave to become, an assistant. They had usually been out of jobs. So it's going to be interesting because I don't think it's going to end. But like I said, I've spoken to a couple of coaches. I asked them, and they said, listen, I don't think this is a trend that's a concerning trend. I just think you're seeing coaches who are trying to make transitions in their lives and decided it's a better chance to do what they're doing right now.
Yeah, which on another side of it, which it makes sense on this side, South Alabama head coach Kane Womack, he left to go to be the defensive coordinator at Alabama. Of course, he's friends with Kalen DeBoer from their time at Indiana. But I also told somebody about that, and they said, why would you do that? I said, well, one, he's friends with them, so that's one thing, and you are going to Alabama, and two, that might actually be a quicker path to him getting a bigger head coaching job. So, you can see it on both sides.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's where a lot of these coaches bring in the guys that they're familiar with, guys that understand what they can do. And that was probably the pitch from Kalen DeBoer. It was like, listen, you can come here, and I know you're giving up a head coaching job, but, stay here for 2 or 3 years, and, maybe there'll be a Power 5 job that opens up, that you're going to Power 4 or whatever it's going to be now, that you'll be more qualified to go after. I mean, that happens a lot of times. Or maybe you can, who knows what's going to happen, and, maybe you want to go to an NFL job. You'll have this experience here. So it's not like it used to be where giving up a head coaching job would be something that maybe looked upon like as frowned upon, where, you just can't cut it. As more so as I'm just looking at a different opportunity and see what's going on. And I mean, I think that's what happened there, and I think that's what I think a lot of people are going to kind of see these trends. And like I said, I don't necessarily believe it's going to be something where we're going to be, woe is the game of college football. I mean, there's more than enough young, up-and-coming coaches that will jump at a chance for a job. You know what I mean? Right now, that aren't going to just say, well, I'm not going to do that. I think they're going to have their opportunities.
Yeah, and talk about Nick Saban. A lot of coaches probably said, wow, we got a chance now. Nick Saban finally retired. So there you go on that.
Yeah, well, it's true. If you think about it, I mean, and you know, Jim Harbaugh leaves Michigan. So all of a sudden people are thinking, okay, well, Michigan's not going to be nearly as strong. And, you know, you look at some of these programs that are at the top and you start to see some of these coaches leaving and you think, okay, well, maybe that opens the door for things. I think what people tend to forget, too, is let's not forget, this upcoming season will be the first season in the new expanded 12-team playoff. So you're going to get a lot of schools playing for the postseason this time around, and that's going to open up some opportunities for some programs maybe to sneak in there and get to that elite, you know, semifinal status. Whereas maybe the Alabamas and the Michigans and the Ohio States have always been there dominating. Maybe you could see a couple schools from maybe on the 12 to 9 range, you know, in that 12-team playoff that are going to find a way to maybe make some noise.
Yeah, it is kind of wild how we kind of look at with this past season ending on how we're really in the new era of college football officially. The 12-team playoff, more with the NIL and transfer portal and all that other stuff, and then certain coaches are now gone. Like you said, Jim Harbaugh back in the NFL, Nick Saban's retired. It's just it really feels like we have officially like turned the page. We're in that new era.
Yeah, I really do think we are. I mean, I mean, we have really. Everything has changed in the last 2 years. I mean, really quickly, which is incredible because when you think about it, the NCAA and college athletics really doesn't move at that kind of speed. You know, I mean, the NCAA is more of a, you know, glacial kind of movement. You know what I mean? And now you're seeing just things happening. We saw a realignment. We saw teams moving around. You're seeing conferences falling apart, like the Pac-12. You look at what's going on in you know, with NIL, as you mentioned, and you know how NIL is changing and. You know, they're still working with the government to try to find a way to maybe get some sort of universal, you know, legislation in place to kind of guardrail that. And then you look at what's going on with the transfer portal and how the portal has really kind of moved and evolved, and they're moving some dates around for that. So it's kind of interesting to see that happen.
Yeah, it is. So we'll see. I mean, as we're recording, something else may happen. So who knows the way college football, the news cycle is going. The Central Florida, that's the team you cover there at the Orlando Sentinel. And, of course, where I'm at here in Alabama, we're all familiar with Gus Malzahn. What is that like, covering this team and covering Gus Malzahn?
Well, it's been fun. I mean, you know, listen, Gus obviously, you know, the way things ended at Auburn, you know, it didn't go like I think he would like to have seen it go. He gets fired. He told us flat out, you know, when he got hired at UCF, and I think it was about an 8-week period that he was out of a job, that he was pretty much resigned to the fact that he was probably going to do TV for that year. He thought he was going to be, you know, really kind of getting into the TV game with like a lot of past coaches have done. But then he got the call from Terry Mohajir, you know, former boss at Arkansas State, and you know they just have clicked since they've gotten to UCF, and you know he's had some success, and you know now they make the move to the Big 12 this past year, and it's been a challenging move, you know, because again, you know, you're trying to take a group of 5 program for so many years and kind of push them into the Power 5 without the necessarily financial resources and some of the physical resources that most Power 5 schools who've been around have had. So he's had to deal with those challenges. He gave up play calling duties last year, then took them back in the middle of the season, and now he's going to be doing play calling duties again this year. And you know he's changed his staff a couple times. I mean, he's tweaked things, and it's been interesting, you know. And I think he realizes that you know there's a lot of potential at UCF. You know that they've hit a top point, you know, where they won the Peach Bowl a couple of years ago when they beat you know Gus and his Auburn team. And they were mentioned in the college football playoff mix for a bit. And, you know, he feels like they can get back there. You know, they have the potential to do that. They've recruited well. They've got the best recruiting class they've had in our program time, the one they just signed. They brought in a lot of good quality transfers. And they look at their schedule now. Last year's schedule was brutal. It was a really road-heavy schedule that saw them travel more than 17,000 miles. I traveled with them for most of those miles, so I know it was brutal. And now this next season they get a lot of games at home that are going to be big draws. Colorado and Utah and Arizona now join the league. So Gus is excited. Gus is feeling like the UCF can make some big noise in 2024.
I know I was looking at an interesting hire, defense coordinator Ted Roof. I just find it interesting because this is a guy he's familiar with because he practiced his offense at Auburn under Gene Chizik, went up against Ted Roof's defense, particularly their national championship year 2010. Just your thoughts on that addition to the coaching staff.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think, he had promoted Addison Williams to be the defensive coordinator last year. And I think you obviously saw the defense had some issues. They couldn't stop the run. They were the worst team in the Big 12 last year at stopping the run. I think they had 10 players rush for over 100 yards in games against them last year. And, just really just couldn't find a way to stop the run at all. You could see they were getting outmaneuvered and out-physicaled. So I had a feeling that Addison Williams wasn't going to get fired, but I felt like at some point that, they would make a move. And so it makes sense that Gus brings in some familiar name and Ted Roof. Ted's developed a reputation for producing, top rushing defenses. That's a big plus for them. The Big 12 is more of a rushing league, it seems like, over the last couple of years. So they bring Ted Roof in. They keep Addison Williams. They kind of move him to the co-defensive coordinator spot. We know Ted's going to also do the linebackers. He's going to coach linebackers, which is a huge move because, they're going to have a whole new linebacking core of guys who basically transfers. So that's going to be big. And then Addison can focus on the secondary and the cornerbacks and safeties who did an outstanding job last year. So I think that all in all, it works out well. And, they want to, I think they brought in some other guys, Trayvon Reed from Auburn as well to be the cornerbacks coach. He's already paid off in recruiting because he helped them flip a player the other day who was a 4-star. He committed to Auburn and now it's flipped to go to UCF. It's the highest ranked player they've ever had. Moves that Gus is making are starting to pay off, and I think that's one of the reasons why he brought in a guy like Ted Roof.
And then looking on offense, just one of the bigger transfer portal signings, bringing in KJ Jefferson. Obviously, the thing at Arkansas, they tried to change the offense. They tried to run more of a pro-style offense versus what they ran with Kendall Briles. It just didn't work, and they couldn't protect them either, and they couldn't run the ball. But obviously a talent. We see what Gus Malzahn has done with a big, mobile, athletic quarterback in the past. I'm not trying to make any lofty comparisons here, but still adding him with Gus. I think KJ Jefferson and Gus Malzahn's offense is a perfect fit. What's your thoughts on just KJ Jefferson coming in and how he fits with this UCF team?
Oh, yeah. I think he fits perfectly what they're trying to do. I mean, and the thing is, you're going to get those comparisons. You're going to see the comparisons to Cam Newton. That's the guy that really kind of has the same body type, same type of game that, KJ Jefferson has. And I think, when you see that and that what Gus was able to do at Cam, then you think, okay, well, I'm going to go in this offense and I'm going to have the same sort of success and thrive. And I think the benefit that what KJ is going to get from playing in this offense this next time around is, that the fact that, UCF is going to push the ball downfield more. They are going to also take advantage of, his arm. They're also going to try to make sure they've got a talented group of receivers. Kobe Hudson comes back, a guy had over 900 yards last year, who's really believes that he can be the next 1,000-yard receiver for this program. They bring back their top running back in R.J. Harvey, got over 1,400 yards rushing the football. Their offensive line has 3 or 4 returning starters that are back. They brought in some transfers to help out there as well. I mean, there are pieces around him that I think will help him out. He's not walking into a situation where, he's got nothing to – he's got to be the man the whole time. I think he realizes there are more than enough players to get the ball to and let them do some of the things they're able to do, much like the way that John Rice Plumlee did last year, the last couple of years, which was getting the ball to your receivers and your running backs and run the ball. And I think, too, you're going to see UCF run the ball a little bit more than they did last year. I think they want to kind of get back to running the game. And that's where you can use Jefferson's size and mobility really well. I mean, whether it's dedicated runs, RPOs, whether you want to have him scramble out of the pocket if pressure kind of starts to get there, you feel like he can do those kind of things. And you hope that he's been solid for the last 3 seasons. Really been hasn't had a lot of health issues, which I think would be a huge draw for them. And like I said, I think his maturity kind of works, and Gus has really been high on him. I think he's a guy that can step in there and really kind of continue what UCF is trying to do.
Yeah, and you talking about the run game. I mean, when in 2022, when he had a healthy Rocket Sanders next to him in the backfield, just that Arkansas offense was tough to deal with. And when he didn't have that run game, when everybody can just key on him, it showed last year. And like you said, with Gus Malzahn's offense, and then with the running game, with Harvey there at running back, I mean, that really can open things up, like you said, with everybody else. So I think it should be a very exciting time for Central Florida fans and supporters looking forward to next season with him there.
No, yeah, I think that exactly. I mean, everyone's excited. I mean, and then they brought in some good transfers, some other guys, besides him as well, to really kind of boost what they're trying to do. They feel like they've got a good core of guys coming back. I know offensively, I think they only return 40% of their production, but the guys they return, they feel like are going to be big type playmakers. Then you look at what they've done on the defensive side. If they can get the defensive line short up and they can stop the run better, there's going to be opportunities to win some games. I mean, you look at the schedule going into next year, and it's legitimately like you feel like they could either be 5-1 or 6-0 to start out the year. I mean, that's how kind of I feel like that when you look at UCF's schedule, like where they can really kind of push themselves. But again, they've got to stay healthy. They've got to have a good spring, and they got to make sure that they can go out there and do all the things they need to do because again, New Hampshire starts things off, Sam Houston, they're at TCU, they get Colorado at home, and then they're at Florida, and then Cincinnati comes home. And that's a stretch right there where I think there's very winnable games. Each one of those games is very winnable. Then you go on the second half of that season, it's going to be a little tougher, and they're going to have some road games later on that are going to be difficult. But I think again, this could be a bounce back year for them where maybe they get to 8 or 9 wins this year, and they're in contention with the Big 12 championship. And I think wouldn't be out of far fetched to believe that, because I think they do have enough players to do that, but they have to make sure they have enough depth and enough experience in some of those positions, especially at linebacker.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting team to watch this spring and see how that's going, and pay attention to that, and also during next season, which everybody can go do so by checking you out over at the Orlando Sentinel, and just tell the listeners and everybody else how can they find you.
Yeah, they can go to OrlandoSentinel.com to catch up on the latest, or they can follow me on is it X now or Twitter or whatever that people like to follow. It's OS Matt Murschel. I'm on there as well, and also on Threads and all sorts of things, Instagram, all the social media things I'm out there on, so they can catch all my latest stories.
All right, everybody, go give Matt a follow. And Matt, I appreciate you coming on and talking all things college football, a little UCF in there too as well. Appreciate it, and I look forward to when we can do this again. Yeah, I look forward to it too. I'm looking forward to the season starting up. It's just hard to imagine. We only got about 2 or 3 weeks, and we're back to spring football. So it never ends, right? It's always around the corner. All right, once again, thanks to Brandon Silvers and Matt Murschel being on the show. Really appreciate this conversation. Really fun conversation with Brandon and Matt. Just fantastic football conversations there. Anyways, and that's going to do it for this week's edition of the show. As I said last week, we're going to 1 episode a week, and probably going to be that way until we get to college football season. If some big things happen, may do like an emergency pod or a quick solo pod or something like that. But outside of that, we're kind of at 1 episode a week for right now, and I'll let you guys know if that is going to change. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSCC. The podcast is available over at WiregrassDailyNews.com or wherever you get your podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. And if you leave just 4 stars, you're just a straight-up hater. You can check out the show over on YouTube at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications, and please leave a comment on the video. And also read those on a future edition as well. And also, you can check out all my written work over at Last Word on college football. Everybody has a great week. We'll talk to you next week. Until next time, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Phillip Jordan Show. Subscribe to the audio podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can watch the show over at the Phillip Jordan Media YouTube channel. Got a question or topic idea? Email the show at sportstalkphillipjordan@gmail.com. Join us next time for more great football talk.